Hi, and welcome to Ring the Bell, Park County this morning. I am your host, and Vince Venata. Richard George is your host here, and Vince Venata is your co-host. We have a special program here today, and do we have this? Is it speaking?
Just keep going.
Okay, and we have the opportunity here to speak to the public about things that concern us. We would invite you to our Facebook page, Ring the Bell Park County, or email us at rtbnow@zoho.com. We're a group of individuals who have pooled our resources to bring you this program. We believe in God before country, personal responsibility, and the inalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We'd like to create a dialogue with you, so we invite you to come to our program or come to our Facebook page or email us. We'd like to begin with a Bible verse found in 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14. If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Vince, what is our topic today?
Our topic today is we're going to talk about taxation with sensible representation or without sensible representation. And specifically, we're going to talk about the 25% increase in sales tax that Park County, the City of Cody, Powell, Meeteetse, and I guess they left out Franny, are trying to push on the people in the election this year. And although this issue was voted down last election, 61 to 39%, they've come out with 14 tax facts you should know. And we're going to try and debunk some of these major ones and talk about some of the issues that are really affecting us, some of the ramifications that are going to really affect us.
You know, I find it interesting, and we'd like to apologize real quick here. We can't hear in our headsets, some of us here at the station, and but we do understand that we're on the air, so thanks for sticking with us here. You know, one of the things that when people hear about taxes, we tend to cringe and we tend to feel that it's not something we want to talk about or be privy to. And but the truth is, we need to understand that taxes are an important part of our society because they do keep the sewers running, the roads working, and but sometimes we see there's waste in the money that is that we're being taxed with. You know, one of my favorite sayings, Vince, is that we're the government and we're here to help. And when we talk about government spending at the local level or even on the federal level, if you pay any attention to what is going on, you'll find that there is waste in every level. And so our purpose today is to simply not necessarily just expose the waste, but make people aware that there is waste that is unacceptable, but at the same time we wish to express our gratitude to our elected officials who do take the time to try and solve these problems. You know, when you have a problem with a plant, it either starts in the roots or it starts at the leaves. And I often refer to plants and things because I like plants. I think they're interesting.
Well, you're a farmer. You should, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, if you're looking at barley and you think you've got a problem, you look at the leaves or you pull it up and you look at the root. But the truth of the matter here is, the roots are the local level, and the of government, and the branches and the leaves are the politics that we see coming out of Washington. As pertaining to our local government, Vince, the same problem can be replicated here at home that we see unfolding on the national stage. Fiscal irresponsibility is becoming part of the new and upcoming affluent society throughout the nation. The idea that throwing money at a problem fixes all of them is irresponsible. So it is with the government on every level. No government has created any wealth, but people who work are the ones who create wealth. So we want to talk about the proper role of government as it pertains to taxation, and in between these points we will be talking about this, the 14 facts that you should know that's been provided by our local government on this 1% sales tax increase. Government was created to provide a safe arena for life and business. Would you agree with that, Vince?
You got to forgive us here. We're working on some technical issues here at our headsets.
We're having headset problems here. But
yes, government was created to provide a safe arena for life and business. Yes. We got to look at the single most important functions of government is to secure the right and freedoms of individual citizens. Government should not provide for people what people cannot provide for themselves.
You know, that's an interesting fact, or point, I should say. You know, when you look at when government was first created out here in the West, before the states were official, you'd have 2 or 3 ranchers in an area, or townspeople that weren't really in towns, but they needed protection. So what did they do? They pooled their resources, and instead of fighting the people that were there out to destroy them or take from them what was theirs, they hired a sheriff, or they made somebody the sheriff. And so the thing that we need to remember is that government is created by the people and for the people, but the government should not do or claim to have the ability to do something that the people themselves do not have the ability to do on their own. But that's why we have government here local. There's a phrase we see throughout the history of America, and the phrase is legalized plunder. And when I hear that phrase, I don't think it's positive. But often this is a phrase that is associated with taxation among the people. Would you agree, Vince?
Well,
these headphones, I'm sorry, guys. These headphones are being very difficult here, and we can't hardly hear what we're saying. Anyway, go ahead, Vince.
I mean, you got to look at it as once government steps over this clear line between the protective and a negative role into an aggressive role of redistributing the wealth and providing so-called benefits for some of its citizens, it becomes the means for the action of legalized plunder, as you brought up. It becomes the lever of unlimited power, which is the sought after prize. Pressure groups, each seeking to fatten their own pockets or benefit their favorite charities, all of with other fellows' money. And of course, you know, when we look at other fellows' money, we're typically talking about taxation and misspending of the taxpayers' money.
Yeah, it's true. You know, I think that when a portion of wealth is transferred from the person who owns it without his consent or without compensation, whether the wealth is taken by force or by fraud, by anyone who doesn't own it, then I say that property is violated and the act of plunder is committed. You know, there's a litmus test here that our founding fathers and people with conservative views really ought to take a look at. And it is this: see if the law takes from one person and gives it to another to whom it does not belong. Or see if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another, taken by force or by fraud. And a good measure of how much freedom the citizens of a nation have lost is the amount of their income that has been taken by their government. Now, I want people to remember this, because this is a really, and this is an unknown author. I just read that. But let me repeat it. A good measure of how much freedom the citizens of a nation have lost is the amount of their income that has been taken by their government. So, we're going to talk here briefly about a few points. Give you a few Wyoming and federal and even some local facts here. But before I do that, I want to provide a statement from one of the liberal leaders of thought, a man that is hailed by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. In fact, I think this is an individual that they did their thesis papers on. When they both did, actually.
Yeah, I remember
when they
Hillary Clinton's letter to Saul Alinsky was propagated out there on the internet pretty extensively, and it's interesting you don't hear mainstream media just beating this, that what Saul Alinsky stood for and their adherence to his principles. But before we go into that, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and then we're going to get our technical issues here straightened out, and check your headsets. Well, good morning. Welcome back. We think we've got all our technical issues all straightened out here now. Rich and I can hear each other, and we want to welcome you back. And we want to let you know also, as a clearing statement, that any of the opinions that are expressed during this show are our opinions and not those of the radio station. But before we went to break, Rich, we were talking about Saul Alinsky, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton. You want to tie that all together for us?
Yeah, let's do that. Saul Alinsky, who's a hero of these two, and they've said it in public, which to me is devastating. But the best slave is one who thinks he's free. And when I think about this, I think to myself, well, what kind of slave would think that they have freedom? And it's people that are manipulated into a false train of thought. And I want to illustrate this with one point. In the last few days we've done some research and done a little math here. And if you look at a calendar starting on January 1st, I want to put in perspective every individual's portion of the local and state and federal taxes. And so, stick with me here. If you start working on January 1st, how long would it take you to pay your county taxes in full at the current 4% sales tax rate? And keep in mind, this is state revenue, but it also is the county revenue. The average citizen would take 15 working days to pay for their portion of the county taxes or the sales tax revenue that goes to the state. It would take them 15 days to pay for their portion. Now, if we have a 1% increase, or I guess realistically it is a 25% increase above that which we already pay, we would end up working 19 days to pay for our extra 1%, or it would be another 4 or 5 working days.
If you're in the market for a pre-owned,
and boy, we're having some good times today with the. Thanks, Griffin. He was quick on the draw there. Anyway, but that would take us to the 27th of January before our portion of the 5th cent tax would be paid for, if you go by the standards that it would take for the average citizen to pay for their portion of the taxes.
And you're talking about the amount, but it's broken down day by day.
Yeah.
The first month.
Yeah, and that's based on like a $55,000 salary, right, and which a lot of people in the area don't make. But the truth is that it still takes you time to pay for your portion of the taxes, because it is a fair tax, and that's what you'll see some people pushing in an upcoming election, is they'd love to see a national sales tax, which, sometimes I think it'd be nice, and other times, the government knows how to get it from you. The beast will be satisfied.
I've lived overseas, throughout my life, my career, my former career, and I lived in those countries where they had national sales taxes, and they call it VAT, value added tax.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that is nothing but a monster.
How do you keep track of that?
Different
and
things.
Keep things fair.
Different things are taxed at different rates. If you have an 8-cylinder engine, you're taxed at one rate. If you have a 4-cylinder, you're taxed at another rate. It's absolute insanity. And all you ever have people doing is trying to figure out how to pay the tax.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's a road we don't want to go down, and I hope our government never chooses to go down the VAT tax way of assessing.
Yeah. It's interesting. So let's get back on point here. So if it takes you till the 27th of January to pay for your county and state taxes as far as the sales tax is concerned, just remember, I want all of my fellow citizens to remember that if you smile through that first month of every year, you will pay your portion. Remember, you're giving it to the local government, and don't forget, they're here to help. I say that with a degree of sarcasm.
We're the government, we're here to help.
We're the government, we're here to help. If you want to add to that, figure how many days further it would take you to pay for your portion of the state's spending. I've always understood that the state spends $2 or $3 billion a year, but based on 2014 numbers, because we don't have the 15s yet, most people can do their taxes and determine how much money they spent, but government, they can't determine that. There's too much smoking mirrors in their math to actually figure it out sometimes. But apparently in 2014, roughly $8 billion was spent, which means that $13,000 per citizen is your portion as a member of the citizenry of Wyoming. And not to mention that in 2014, the state also had roughly $10 billion in debt. And so this might be new information for people, but Wyoming does carry a hefty debt load per capita. In fact, our debt load, if you break it down to the number of citizens, is just a little over $17,000 per citizen, or roughly $30,000 to operate and to service the debt that we have if we were to pay it off. That's how much each citizen would pay.
Now, when you say 17,000, you're talking about the total population. You're talking about kids. You're talking about adults. You're talking about every single citizen within Wyoming.
That's right. So a family of 4, you've got a pretty decent debt load that you really are responsible. It's your portion. And so when you start to hear these numbers, you see why the government would like to tax you a little bit more. Now, it's interesting. If you think about the national debt, there's $3.8 trillion, or this isn't the national debt, this is the national budget. There's $3.8 trillion, or roughly $11,728 per citizen. It's interesting. Only a third of the people in this country actually pay significant taxes. And so there's actually another figure that you can actually add to this. The taxpayer who actually pays taxes, his portion or her portion is $32,000 to actually service our current budget. And so if anybody out there thinks that the rich aren't paying enough, don't forget they are paying for a huge portion of what we live on here in the United States. And so I want to do some quick math. And this doesn't even include the $19 trillion in national debt that we currently have. And so I guess I want to put it this way. This to me is not freedom. This is fiscal tyranny at its best, or I should say at its worst. And we want to talk about some Wyoming facts here in a minute, but I want to put together or illustrate what this does to each family. So if we've established that if you start working January 1st, if we get another 1% sales tax added to our current 4% to make it 5%, you're going to work till January 19th or 27th to pay for your portion of that sales tax. Now, for a family who makes $55,000 a year, if you take Wyoming budget and our national budget to operate on, it's going to take you roughly till September 20th before you start bringing home any money for your family to spend the way they would like to.
That's what they call your disposable income.
That's your disposable income.
Yeah, so you got to wait until September to actually have money that disposable.
Yeah. So if you were to pay your portion, and many people don't pay taxes. There's been years where I've paid little to no taxes. But if you start collecting money sometime in the year for your disposable income, technically on September 20th. That's about the day that you would start doing it if you were to pay for your portion. So I just want to ask you, are you the slave or are you the free man? And so put those words back into perspective. The best slave is one who thinks he's free.
Who said that?
Saul Alinsky, the
okay.
liberal leader in thought.
There we go.
So, but this is interesting. Vince, Wyoming spends roughly $13,000 per citizen. What are neighboring states like?
Well, when you look at the numbers, and this is something we did together, we looked at, and you can look at that for Colorado, they spend approximately $5,654 per. Idaho, $43.93. Montana, which this really surprised me, I thought it was a lot higher, $6,045, and then Utah, $43.85, and those are the surrounding states.
But Wyoming pays
$13,087.32 per capita.
Per capita. We've got a lot of roads, I guess, in between towns, but the money can't all be there.
No.
It's no. Well, anyway, so if you average those numbers, our surrounding states spend roughly $5,100 per capita to sponsor their state budgets, but Wyoming feels the need to spend $13,000 per capita. That's just, that's a far out there number as compared to other states.
And one of the interesting things about it is that people think that Wyoming is a conservative state, politically, fiscally, all across the board. But when you look at the numbers here, it's something that kind of perplexes. But we're coming up here on a break. We hope that you'll stay with us. And when we get back, we'll be continuing our talk here about 25% increase in sales tax that Park County.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
Finding best potatoes for French fries.
No!
Russet. Fingerling. Yukon Gold.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Brought to you by understood.org and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Ring the Bell. And the issue we're talking about this morning is Park County and the cities trying to increase our sales tax by 25%.
25% increase, yeah.
25% increase. They say it's only a 1% increase, but it's actually a 25% increase. And they've put out there 14 tax facts you should know and trying to paint a pretty picture. And we're trying to add a counter to that and trying to get a different perspective out there to folks so that when the voters go out, they can make a conscious decision on how they should vote on this. And more importantly, what's coming up here very shortly is the survey that the county and the city are getting ready to put out. We look back when the federal government was shut down. It was only what they called the non-essentials who did not come to work, and that was tantamount to 15% of the government. The rest of the government continued to operate. It's time for our local officials to start thinking, what are your non-essentials?
Non-essentials here at the county level?
The county and the city levels and the town levels. It's time to start thinking about what are your non-essentials. They need to find them, and they need to do the hard things. And they're going to have to pull the plug on some of these issues. And one of them is recreation. Everybody likes to recreate. Everybody likes to have fun. Everybody likes to have a good time. But, if you want to recreate, you should be doing it at your own dime, not subsidized by the government.
Yeah, it's true. It's one of the things that the city of Cody and we do have to give them a little praise here because, here in the last year we've seen this idea that was proposed by the Parks and Recreation to have this beach put in here at Beck Lake. The city of Cody has basically said, or they just rolled over and said no somehow, that we don't need to have this beach, or if we did need to have it, we don't want to maintain it when we're done. And, they've learned from sad experience with the subsidy that they are currently throwing at the recreation center up on top of the hill. It's interesting. There's roughly 9,400, 9,500 people in Cody. And we can't find the membership on this. We've heard it's 9,000. We've heard it's 4,800. We can't find the membership on this place. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the one of the last statistics we heard were there's roughly 9,000 people who have their pass to get into this recreation center. That means that everybody in the city of Cody. Roughly everybody in the city of Cody has a pass. That's just not the case. And so the city of Cody is actually subsidizing people from outlying areas who come to the rec center to make sure that they can recreate. And the city needs to look at this and understand that it is not their responsibility to subsidize people that are outside the city of Cody. And I don't live in the city of Cody, but I also don't have a pass to the rec center.
Right. And as person who lives in the city of Cody, I have no problem with people who live outside the city using the rec center. Actually, I would encourage it. But I believe that the city should not subsidize memberships for those who live in Cody or those who live outside of Cody. Essentially, if you want to recreate there at the recreation center, then you should be paying your share of what it costs that rec center to operate. And if you want to participate, you pay for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The amount of money that is thrown at this rec center as a subsidy is, it's just under $500,000. And if you divide that up by the city population, you're going to spend roughly $50 to $55 in subsidies per person in Cody. And most of the people in Cody don't even go to this rec center. The city of Cody, they've learned some hard things here, and we have our opinions on what they should do with it, but we're not in charge of city government, and nor do we want to be. But it's interesting that the city of Cody funds several different charities, And, we would hate to say that they can't fund the Boys and Girls Club, but, or something like that. But at the same time, some of these are non-essential activities. They're non-essential programs that the city helps sponsor. And if the city really needs money to work on sewers and water and make sure that everything's working fine in the city, the things that are of necessity, they need to cinch their belt somehow. And unfortunately, they're going to have to make some tough calls. The pamphlet that's been put out says that there will be an increase of $80 per family. And I just don't feel, Vince, that this number adds up very well. In fact, I think it's, fairly easy to debunk based on some of the other statistics that are given in this pamphlet. If you look up the population of Park County, there's roughly 28 to 29,000 people here in Park County. And the expected revenue to be brought in by this extra 1% to the county is $7 million. And keep in mind, it's $80 per household in the pamphlet. But I find that when you divide these numbers, $246 roughly is divided up per individual, not household, in this county. Now, we know that tourists account for 33%, apparently, of what is going to be paid, but that still leaves $164 to be paid by every individual in Park County if you were to average this out. So I don't know where they get this $80 number. I know that Barry Cook has said that it's some formula that was, developed down in Cheyenne or something. But the numbers, you should be able to check math. That's the one thing we learned in high school math, is that you should be able to check your work and come up with the same answer. And I just don't see it here. If you divide it up by the number of households that are in Park County, I think the commissioners have said that they use a number of 11,001 households. That means that roughly $636 is collected from every household. But if the tourists pay their third, that's $212. But the household still pays $424. And my question is that number accurate or not? And we need to take into account that a business pays sales tax as well. But people need to understand that if the businesses are going to pay for their portion of the sales tax as well, the buck is going to be passed on to the consumer. And if you're a consumer here in Park County, ultimately you will pay your fair share of $636 per household based on the numbers that are provided.
Well, and if you look at that point number 10 they bring up, saying there's 49 exemptions from the 5-cent tax, the 25% increase, that they includes real estate purchases, food, fuel, fertilizer, and farm equipment. Well, okay, real estate purchases, yeah, they're exempt from sales tax. Food, well, that's only the food you buy in the grocery store that's not processed. That's stuff off the shelf. That's tax exempt. Fuel, we're getting taxed 75 cents a gallon, 50 from the feds, and 25 cents here in Wyoming. And then fertilizer. You're a farmer. Is that taxable?
Actually, I don't pay taxes on fertilizer.
Okay, so
yeah, nobody does.
But farm equipment. When they talk about farm equipment, though, you go out and you buy a tractor or a combine. Are you paying tax on that?
No.
What about the wheels?
You'll pay taxes on the wheels and the parts.
There you go.
And so it doesn't take too long for businesses who spend money in Park County to pick up some of this tab. But I would have to say that I'm going to give this number 5 on this fact sheet that's provided by the City of Cody a big fat Pinocchio. It just the numbers don't add up, and they shouldn't have published that number in there. So the City of Cody, they realize that they've got places that they need to tighten the belt. The county commissioners also realize it. What's interesting is you don't hear the county commissioners touting as much as you do the municipalities that this sales tax is absolutely needed.
Right. I think we only had 2 county commissioners speak out against it.
No, they spoke out against it, but I've only heard one that's somewhat in favor of it. There's 2 others that don't really comment on it. Mm-hmm. And everyone needs to understand.
They must be, those 2 must be up for re-election this year or something.
No, actually, Lee's up for re-election, Lee Livingston, and he's actually spoke out against it.
That's what I mean. He's spoken against it, but the other guys, I don't know.
Well, anyway, but we know that the county has spent a lot of money on buildings and capital investment. But there's some other things that the county really ought to look at look at cinching the belts on. I think you have a favorite. It's not an incredible amount of money, but it does equate to somebody's salary. What is it, Vince?
Well, which one are you talking about?
Oh, I thought you'd mentioned the subsidizing the bistro in the library.
At the county. Yeah, the bistro at the library. Why is a bistro in a library being subsidized to $245,000 a year is beyond me. Just like with the rec center, just like with anything else being run by government, it should be private industry, private individuals, private businesses that go out there and sell food to the public, not government. Put the bistro up for lease. Let somebody come in there, let somebody operate it, pay a lease, rent, whatever you want to call it, to the county for using that facility, but let them operate it and make a profit. And if they make a profit, then the boat floats. And if they don't make a profit, then the boat sinks.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's supposed to operate. Government's not supposed to make up the shortfall and say, well, we didn't sell enough hoagies this week, so we're going to give more money towards the bistro.
We got to make sure they stay in the library.
Yeah. So that's not the way it should work.
Let the free market dictate how the free market operates, and government should get out of the way, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And just to correct something, when we were talking earlier about the beach here at Beck Lake, that wasn't the Park and Rec department that is trying to push that. That's the Shoshone Rec District.
There you go.
That's made up of appointed people. They're not even elected to the Shoshone Rec District. They're appointed.
So they're bureaucrats.
Yes. And they're spending taxpayer money. And I don't know if people are aware of this. You pay 12 mills towards a school district, and then the school district pays gives 1 mil to the recreation district.
That's not million. It's mills. It's the
mills. Yeah, part of your taxes. And the legislature just decided not to fund K through 12. Maybe it's time
in its past history. They've cut the budgets.
Yeah, they've cut the budget, so they're not going to fund K through 12 education. But what did you call that recreation center they're building down in Laramie?
Oh, the High Altitude Training Center.
The Matt Mead High Altitude Training Center.
The Matt Mead High Altitude Training Center.
But we'll get back onto that here. We've got to take a break.
Hey, and welcome back to Ring the Bell. We want to thank our advertisers, and we encourage people to use Farm Bureau Insurance. We were talking about some of the spending here in Park County, and anyway, it's interesting. Park County has more paved roads than any other county in the state, and when you drive around Park County, we have really nice roads. So we want to thank our commissioners for that, because they do a great job of conducting business in that regard. But when we move to, say, another municipality like the city of Powell, we've been hearing that they want to spend $10 to $11 million on removal of a median, or the median, through Powell, and on the main street there. And my whole thought on this is, why is a municipality that has some of the nicest roads — I mean, Powell has nicer roads than Cody by a landslide — why in the world are they trying to tear up the current road that they have that's really nice, but because it has a median, kind of like Lovell just did this, they tore out the median. Why does Powell feel they need to follow suit in doing this? I just haven't heard any real reasoning why they need to do this. And, $10 or $11 million is a massive amount of the Powell budget, and that only accounts for a mile worth of road that they're trying to do here.
Yeah, and that's a state highway. What did YDOT say about that?
I think YDOT said no.
But the city of Powell wants to do it.
And I'm not a big fan of YDOT, except for the highway patrolman that's outside of Thermopolis. That guy is one of the nicest guys I think I've ever met. So shout out to the nice highway patrolman out there.
You must have got a warning instead of a ticket.
Anyway, I sat in his car for 30 minutes and we just had a good time. But Anyway, but yeah, but so, you look at things like that in the city of Powell and you wonder, why in the world are you trying to promote this 1% sales tax when you have nice roads already and you want to tear up a really nice road just to make it slightly nicer? You can drive a semi around those medians down in Powell. And the only reason I know that is because I've done it many times. But, another thing the city of Powell does that I hear a lot of complaints about in the Powell area is that they're subsidizing the golf course and the swimming pool in Powell. And so here we have a problem in Park County that we're beginning to see.
No, wait now. You said swimming pool?
Yeah, there's a swimming pool in Powell.
Yeah, but
they have a mini rec center.
Didn't they get that as a result of a fifth penny sales tax here some years ago? And they can't pay to operate it? And so they have to get another tax to operate the swimming pool?
There you have it.
Okay,
there you have it. So, what we're doing is we're seeing a pattern here. And, I spoke with some Cody officials earlier this year, and they really feel strongly that recreation must be a strong point in Park County, in our municipalities. And I say, if the federal government, when it gets shut down because they don't have money and they can cut non-essentials, I would just encourage the city administrators in every town, what recreation do you promote with subsidies from your budget that is not non-essential? Which one? That's the point we want to make here, is recreation seems to be such a big part of the government's influence here in Park County. And to be honest, I look at the parks here in Cody. We've got a lot of parks. I think that Cody sits in the 95th percentile or better for the square footage of green parks or playground equipment in Cody per capita. Cody ranks at the top. If you go to a park in Cody and there's a lot of people there, there's one family there besides yours, if you want to, you can pack up and leave and go to another park and there's nobody there. What other community have you ever seen that you can do that besides like Big Timber, Montana, because nobody's there? They've blown off the playground. We like the park in Big Timber. We stop there on occasion. But anyway, so what part of city government is non-essential? What part of county government is non-essential? Where can we cinch our belts? And this is what we want people to promote to the people who represent them in their districts, their wards, their their county seats. Because if you can promote to them the idea that we are okay where we are, go ahead and find some things, cut the fat, trim the edges, and see if you can do everything that you can to survive on the budgets that you have. It's I don't know, Vince, when you think I got, you hear the phrase, the Wyoming way, the code of the West.
Your word is your bond.
Your word is your bond. That kind of thing. What other things do you hear, or what other things do you think about when you hear those things? Do you think fiscal responsibility?
You think you would, and you don't hear that. But what I hear is, a lot of people having distrust of what's going on with government, and not just here locally, but even on the national. So local, county, state, and on the national level, people have a lot of distrust. And and when you have a councilman get on the radio and say that he just loves to pay his taxes, and I had to call him up later on and said, "Are you for real about that? You really like paying your taxes?" I'd never met anybody that likes paying taxes. I mean, it's an obligation. You have to do it. But you start to think, is that the socialist way of doing things? Is government going to take care of us? Whatever happened to community? Whatever happened to your friends? Whatever happened to your family? Do we need all that?
Well, you mentioned community. I really want our local officials to listen to the last election. The last time this was on the ballot. There's a reason that community may not be part of this code anymore, simply because instead of just taking the word of the electorate who voted this sales tax down last time, now we have city and public officials who are trying to educate the public with redefinitions, and in my opinion, these redefinitions are smoking mirrors. And, so our purpose today is to encourage people to come out and vote against this 1% sales tax increase or this 25% increase above that which we already pay, because we feel that our city and county governments can still do yet a better job, and the resources are not exhausted as of yet to justify more taxes. The government never creates wealth. It's the people who work who create the wealth, because the people who work have money to spend. And anyway, so we want to create a better environment.
You talk about the people who work have money to spend. When we look at our state, we're in a bust right now situation with natural resources.
Yeah.
Okay, we finally caught up to the rest of the country where it was a couple of years ago. The rest of the country was hurting financially. Wyoming finally caught up to it. And we've got a lot of people out of work right now. Homes aren't selling. A lot of people, you look in the Gillette area, the Casper area, you look at Williston, Montana, it was once a boom town, is now a ghost town. People are starting to hurt. And what those people are starting to do is they're having to tighten the belt. They're having to tighten the belt, turn down the thermostat in their homes, and they're having to live within their means by whatever purpose, whatever means they can.
Yeah.
Well, they can't, whatever job they get. I mean, you may have had a guy working on the rigs making $30 an hour and now working at McDonald's pulling in $7-8 an hour. They can't go to their boss and say, hey, listen, I used to live in at $30 an hour. I need a raise.
Yeah.
Well, that's what our city government and our county and the state needs to do. They need to look, we've got less money coming in. We need to spend less. We can't go to the people and say we need more money to operate.
Yeah.
Government has gotten so much bigger here in Wyoming in the past 6-7 years. They need to trim down, and they have. But, your counties and your cities need to trim down also.
They need to do the same. It's interesting. I'm a farmer, and let's just say that if I had 500 acres of ground that I was farming and I went out and bought, $800,000 or $900,000 in equipment, chances are in 1 year, but probably two years, I would probably have the nicest farm sale in the history of the state of Wyoming, because I spent more than I had, and there was nobody to request more money from. The people who buy my crops, they don't pay more money because I need more money to sponsor my debt or my projects or my fun life. They're not going to pay it. And so when the bank calls a note, you have a farm sale. And what's too bad is that this concept is not understood by every elected official. And there's potential to lose everything we have. What would we do? What would we do if we didn't have enough money to run the public library? This is a hypothetical because, so there's a lot of people out there who would say this is a must-have. And it's one of the better parts of our society is to have these libraries. But, so I'm not saying cut the funding to the library, but what I am saying is there's got to be some areas that we can trim here. And, in speaking with local officials, they feel that recreation is a must-have in Park County. The truth is, go hike Hart Mountain. Go fish out on the reservoir. Go run around anywhere you want. There's so much opportunity to recreate. You don't need to have recreation provided for you in your back door. Dave Ramsey has a simple plan that works in the home. It works in life. And it would work with government. And so, so say like if somebody says I make $1,000 a month and I have a $200 rent payment and what do? You pay for your food and your housing, your electricity and your phone and your fuel and then what's left over you pay for stuff that you prioritize what is in the list. And government needs to do the same. And we find great fault that recreation seems to be part of the municipalities in the area. And we feel that there's areas that can be fixed here before the public has to say yes to a 1% or a percentage increase on sales tax.
And to that tune about curbing and cutting and such, our local government has offered to have people come in and sit down in their budget sessions. Well, most times when they're having their budget sessions, they're having their discussions, that's during working hours. And most folks are out working. And they don't have time to break away from work to go in and sit up there at City Hall or at the county commissioners when they're conducting business during the workday. So maybe city councils and the county commissioners need to be doing things after hours where people can become involved and can say, hey, you need to cut this, you need to cut that, we don't need this, we don't need that. And I would encourage our local officials to get more involved with the citizenship and find out what their opinions are instead of living in a glass bubble and talking to people at breakfast or something like that. Have ward meetings, have meetings, at the library, have the county commissioners sitting up there. Tell us what you think, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's about closing time for us here. But hey, this is a regressive tax, especially to the lower income people in this area who spend a much higher percentage of their disposable income on items that are taxable. Single mothers, they're the ones going to be affected by this. And anyway, we just want to leave you with these thoughts. We're grateful for the opportunity to be on the radio and to live in a country where we can actually share these thoughts. And anyway, thanks for listening and have a great day.